Your birthday's coming up. Someone asks, "So, what are you doing for your birthday?" And you feel that familiar micro panic because the honest answer is nothing. Not a dinner with friends, not a party with balloons, not even a quiet weekend trip to celebrate yourself. Just another day in the calendar. You say it out loud and suddenly the room gets weird. People look at you like you've admitted to a crime. They tell you you're being dramatic, ungrateful, maybe even depressed. But what if the story behind not celebrating your birthday is a lot more interesting and a lot more intelligent than anyone realizes? For a surprising number of people, it's just another day isn't an edgy personality trait. It's a survival strategy their brain quietly built over years of disappointment. Psychologists call part of this learned helplessness, and it shows up when your nervous system gets tired of predicting joy that never arrives. As a kid, you might have been promised parties that didn't happen, friends who said they'd show up and didn't, adults who forgot or minimized the day that was supposed to feel like yours. Each time, your brain updated the math. Birthdays went from special and exciting to high-risk situations where hope hurts. So now, when you shrug and say you don't really care, what people hear as apathy is often scar tissue doing its job, thick, protective layers that keep the old pain from breaking through. Then there's another group entirely, the ones whose lives are so crammed with responsibilities, deadlines, and mental tabs open that time itself turns blurry. This is what psychologists sometimes call time blindness. Days and weeks bleed into each other. You're juggling work, school, bills, other people's needs. In that chaos, your own birthday quietly drops into the same mental folder as renew registration and book dentist. Not because you don't value yourself, but because your brain is ruthlessly triaging what feels urgent. The date matters less than the dozen problems in front of you right now, the email that needs sending, the meeting you need to prep for, the quiet anxiety about money that never quite goes away. And finally, there are the people who really did opt out on purpose. Not to make a statement, not to punish anyone, they just stopped outsourcing their happiness to a specific square on the calendar. They figured out, sometimes through self-reflection and sometimes through hard experience, that waiting for one day a year to feel special is a bad emotional investment. Self-determination theory, a long-standing framework in psychology, suggests that the healthiest people are the ones who build their sense of worth from autonomy, competence, and real connection, not from rituals other people expect. When you understand that skipping the cake doesn't look empty, it looks like freedom. It looks like knowing that your value doesn't need a spotlight to be real. Of course, it's not always that clean. There are people who say birthdays don't matter with a tightness in their voice they hope you don't notice. They want to be celebrated but are terrified of what it would mean if nobody showed up or if the celebration felt half-hearted. So they pre-reject the day. "I don't care" becomes emotional armor. It's a way of controlling the story. If I say I didn't want anything, then no one can hurt me by giving me less than I hoped for. The outside behavior, staying home, ignoring messages, calling it just another day, can look exactly the same in people who are genuinely at peace and people who are quietly protecting an old wound. The difference lives in what happens when nobody's watching. If you've ever spent a birthday pretending you're fine while part of you is waiting for someone to make it feel different, your brain is probably running what researchers sometimes call an anniversary effect. Certain dates act like emotional tripwires. You can go months feeling okay, then suddenly that week rolls around and the 8-year-old version of you who got forgotten wakes up inside your chest. You might not consciously connect the dots, but your body remembers. It gets heavy, detached, or oddly tense. So when you tell people it's just another day, sometimes it's less a statement of fact and more of a wish. I want it to not matter, so it doesn't have to hurt. Sometimes it's a quiet negotiation with a younger self who still remembers what it felt like to be overlooked. There's another angle people often miss. When someone doesn't care about celebrating their birthday, it can threaten the people around them. If you're at peace without a party, it quietly questions why other people still need the ritual so badly. It says, without attacking anyone, I don't need what you need to feel okay. For people whose sense of worth is tightly tied to milestones, that feels confronting. It's easier to label you weird, damaged, or shut down than to consider that maybe you found a different way to feel whole. Maybe your quiet confidence makes their need for applause feel a little more desperate. So, if you're the person who honestly feels fine treating your birthday like any other Tuesday, here's what you need to hear. That doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you cold. It just means your relationship with celebration is more complex than cake equals happiness. Maybe life taught you that hope can sting. Maybe your brain is overloaded and something had to slide off the priority list. Maybe you really have reached a place where you don't need external rituals to feel like you matter. All of those are valid. The important thing is knowing which one is actually true for you and giving yourself room to feel whatever comes up without judgment. Ask yourself gently. If you knew for sure that the people you care about would show up fully for you, no drama, no disappointment, just genuine presence, would you still want to skip it? If the answer is yes, that's autonomy. You're allowed to design your life around quiet contentment instead of noisy tradition. If the answer is no, and part of you quietly aches to be celebrated, but is afraid to want it out loud, that's not something to be ashamed of either. It just means there's a younger version of you who could use some honesty and care instead of another layer of, it doesn't matter. That part deserves acknowledgement, not dismissal. Maybe the real measure isn't whether you throw a party or hide from one. Maybe it's whether you can look at yourself on that day, whatever you're doing, whoever remembers or forgets, and still believe you're worth being here, worth the space you take up, worth love, with or without balloons. If your last birthday was quiet and you felt genuinely okay, you're not failing at life. You've just chosen a different way to move through it. And if you weren't okay, that doesn't mean you're doomed. It means your brain is still pairing that date with old data, and you have time to write new chapters, maybe with a small ritual just for you, or maybe with letting it fade into the background where it belongs. If this video felt like someone finally spoke out loud, the thing you've never quite known how to explain, you're probably exactly the kind of person this channel is built for. You don't need anyone's permission to do nothing on your birthday. But just in case it helps to hear it, you're allowed. If you want more psychology that actually explains people like you, the next video will go even deeper.